Hello, and we are live. You got your Omiinka 7 and Tribe. Omiinka 7 Zanu and Tribe is bringing you Oracle's Divination Network, all the way from our Hero program that focus on staff development. I'll be talking to the administrators, the principals, and the teachers today. We found out we cannot talk about a problem without presenting a solution. And we have a solution for you today that we want to talk about. And as you see, our title is Get Up Off of That Panic Button and Let the Children Remain. Get up off of that panic button and allow the children to remain. Get up off of that panic button and let the children remain. Get up off of that panic button and let the children remain. Yes, I thought I'd add a little jingle to it. And I'm quoting that particular phrase, get up off of that panic button. And through working with English language learner and working with NABI, most of you know that I have been trying to gain membership for NABI here in the state of Indiana. Hopefully we will get our numbers up and we will have our chapter up and running with not only just bilingual, but we're going to be bringing Geechee Gullah language in the state of Indiana for those African Americans who have descendants of Geechee Gullah. We're going to have something for you. It will not just be Spanish, but it will be the opportunity to learn an African language at least. If not Geechee Gullah, then Medineter, or one of the languages of the African native language. What I want to talk to you about today is very, very serious. As you know, I talked to you about the African American boy being singled out and having the highest percentage in numbers in enrollment for special education. Now, we have to address this because it is becoming astronomical around the country, not just in one state, but around the country. And what I mean by that is that the principals are ignoring this statistics. And statistics speak for themselves. The history and statistics will bear me out on this. And today I want to present you with some statistical data. And as you know, I've worked with Project 2019, where we are working with the disparity, the gap between African Americans who don't have higher education and those that do. And we have a target date of 1920, Project 2019. We're going to look at the numbers and statistics and see if we have more African Americans who have engaged in getting higher level education. Because we know that knowledge is power, and by the year of 2019, we would have been out of slavery for over 400 and some odd years. So we're going to take a look at those statistics during 2019 to see if we have more African Americans that have obtained higher level education. That could be a technical 2-year associate or bachelor's degree or master's degree. And we have statistics on those people who have gained their credentials currently now. And we would like to present that to you. But I want to show you a little bit about the navigating, turning a blue point. And this was my logo and my claim to fame. Navigating a Turnaround, a Blueprint for Change by Sherelle M. Garth. Yes, we're navigating a change. And we're presenting a blueprint for success. You cannot talk about a problem unless you have a blueprint. Now, this will also be in my presentation for those who would like to invite me to come to their school or their non-for-profit organization. I do present, and I'm an international speaker. And I have been a keynote speaker for Dr. Martin Luther King's Day internationally, which was publicized in the German newspaper right there in Hanau, Germany. So I can claim the fame international lecturer now. And this particular logo was done some time ago. And as you can see, the ombudsman symbol of hugging the one person in the middle and the ombudsmans around that person. And this was my organization, Lilly Institute for Education, Parent Information Center. Yes, I also had founded the Black Organization of Parents, and we worked together very diligently to monitor those African American children who were placed in special ed. And this was during the time Dr. Jawanza Kanjufu was very instrumental in helping to sensitize the teachers to working with minorities. Now, part of the problem is that most Caucasian teachers and non-Melanite teachers who are not familiar with the culture of African American males tend to overreact and they hit the panic button. And that means they're ready to assess and refer a child to special ed who might not need to go to special ed, but because of their panicking behavior, they have overreacted and hit the panic button and sent the referrals in. Now, who do you suppose that is there to barricade and assess and look at that referral? Usually only the special ed department. And they're overwhelmed already. They take the referral and follow through, and nothing else is done to reassess that child or to look at other avenues that may have been overlooked. That's why I have come into age with my professional development, because I think we need several eyes to take a look at that referral. And that means that this could be a team of stakeholders in the school system that will form a team once a month to look at those referrals and go through a set of standards and check off procedures to see if this teacher is overreacting and who may have sent that child there who has a language learning deficit rather than a disability. Isn't it grand to have stakeholders in place to weed out those inappropriate referrals, to cut down on the number of tax dollars that are being spent for special ed, and to reassure that parents that this is a genuine referral for LD, BD, EMH, undifferentiated learner, because a separate set of eyes can really help accommodate a teacher who is very busy and who may not be up on her idea, regulations, and laws, and may possibly discriminate against that child by impromptu referring him on for a service that he doesn't need, costing taxpayers lots of money. Now, this program should have been in place for a while now. I only learned of the program after I decided to advocate for NAVI and be a part of the English language learner recommendation for teachers. As a staff, as a professional development person, I can lobby for those schools who need professional development and need to have a specialized training to get a sharper eye and a better ability to assess and making sure that they haven't overlooked the input from the parent or the history of the background of the child. And that is what I'm proposing. I'm proposing that there's a group of team members to come in to the meeting for the M team. Prior to the M team, this team is called the SAT team. And those teams will come together, take a look at this referral, call in the mother, take a set of forms, and then begin to ask questions from the mother to get input from the home. Now, the mother will give various different answers to the questions that we're looking for to fill in the absence of the child's environment. You just can't place a child in special ed without knowing what type of environment does this child have. Have we overlooked something in this child's life? Is he having the same difficulties in all of his classes in middle school, or is it just in my class? All of these things have to be looked at. Therefore, you must get the involvement of the parents in. And with the set of forms that we have prepared with NABI, they will address those questions about the child's home life. Now, this would give us several set of eyes to reevaluate this child as to whether or not he even needs to be referred for special ed. It could be for a language acquisition or deficit and not an LD or BD problem at all. And we could make mistakes. As teachers, I said, we are the ones, the female teachers, who are making these referrals. And could we have been wrong in our hastiness to push the button, the panic button, to send Johnny down to special ed because we're so angry, and now, Johnny, you're going to get it. You're going to get everything you deserve. You're out of this classroom. I no longer have to put up with you. Now somebody else will have to take your burden of your silliness or your inability to learn. Those teachers feel like they have gotten what they wanted. They got Johnny out of the way, and they rejected him from the mainstream, and he cannot go on learning in the mainstream. He must be singled out in a smaller size classroom. Now, a teacher shouldn't have all that power. Not in this life or in the next life. There should always be other supervision of the principal and other team and stakeholders' ability to reassess and look over that recommendation to see if the teacher has dotted all her I's and crossed all her T's and maybe left the parent out. Principals, I'm speaking to you today. You need to invite me in to help you learn how to do an in-school assessment of your special education referrals. Yes, you could have some errors there. I don't care how many years of service you say your teachers have had. A lot of them have had no regulation on the 94-142 or the 97 Ideal Law for the least restrictive environment. It says that you must keep a child in the least restrictive environment on the 97 law idea, meaning keeping the child in the classroom. Do not take that child out and replace him. He must stay in the least restrictive environment. That's what the laws say. And if you're not up on the laws, by golly, I can help you get there. Because they sent me off to school to Madison, Wisconsin, to learn the laws and regulation of the 94-142, 504, and the 457, the many laws that they have guiding the regulations of special education. You must understand, principals, your teachers cannot do this job without knowing laws like 504, Section 504 of the manual, Comprehensive Manual for Indiana Educators, Section 504, the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. Give some of the regulations for 504. You should be familiar with that because those are the benefits that you offer in the school when the child falls under other health impaired. Now, either you listen to me today or you pay for it tomorrow because some of your teachers are panicking and hitting the panic button and making far too many referrals to special ed for children who have a language acquisition problem and not a learning disability. You need to be able to do an in-school assessment to find out are you meeting the criteria for the referral? Or to find out if far too many of your teachers are making referrals and you are not engaging in the team assessment with the round table look at that child's records and the referral. Now, I want to say this much. A lot of teachers don't do staff development or professional development, and you don't see a lot of special education training going on. I am a specialist in the area of the regulations of special education, 94-142, 457, Section 504, and other regulations that are now coming into play for English language learner. I have a background in law, educational law from Roosevelt University, which is what my specialty is, and working with understanding the educational law. And I'm not speaking of all the laws, just educational law in the area of mediation, arbitration, and due process hearing. I have experienced all of those levels, and if the schools don't watch it, these teachers are now learning the laws themselves, and they're expert in these areas of law, and they're going pro bono, and they're representing themselves in the courtrooms where they're mediating for their children, and they're advocating at mediation level, following the chain of command, the arbitration level, where your arbitrators are making the final decision, and finally, if they're not satisfied, they're going to due process hearing. We're trying to avoid the due process hearings, but sometimes it can't be avoided because you don't hear what the parents are saying. This will help you prevent from needlessly placing children in special ed category and labeling and tagging them when it's unnecessary. Dr. Juwanza Kunjufu and I had proclaimed that there is a conspiracy to destroy African American males. There might be a conspiracy to destroy all of African American children, female and males alike. We're trying to help you so you don't over-identify our Black children, which you're currently doing. Now, I got involved with NABI for several reasons. NABI has been out there working very, very hard and trying to create bilingual opportunities for children to speak their own native language in addition to English. Now, this is a book that I'm going to be using for my staffing professional development for those principals. So why are we choosing the principals? Because ultimately the principals are responsible for what happens in their district if they have an overabundance of statistics of African American children being singled out and referred for special education. NABI has done a great job in trying to partner with the schools, and I'm going to be helping them in the state of Indiana, and I have been doing that for the past 5 years. And NABI makes quite a few recommendations about conducting a self-assessment. And most good organizations always conduct a self-assessment to look at their own department and to shine a light on their own mistakes so they can go back and correct them. Now, in NABI's booklet, they have a tablet of percentages of students from ages 6 to 21 serving the under ideas in 1920 to 2000 by race. And by race, it says the age of 6 to 21 years old. There were that was served by IDEA, and that is a law and service. There was 62.9 served that were whites and 13.7 that were Hispanics that were served. And the Black for non-Hispanic was 20.3, Asian Pacific Islanders 1.8, American Indians 1.3. As you can see, it stands out that the Caucasians were the largest numbers that were served. And these were for IDEA. And for the general population that was served, the Caucasian was 64.5, Hispanic 16.2, African Americans 14.5, Asian Pacific Islanders 3.8, American Indians 1.0. As you can see, there is a large number and disparity there. In their table of percentages of students ages 6 through 21 served under the IDEA in 1990, 2000 by disability, race, and ethnicity. And it says the disabilities, and I'll read them all. Specific learning disability was 62.1 for whites. For the Hispanic, it was 16.6, blacks and non-Hispanic 18.4, Asian specific 1.6, American Indians 1.4. And they go on to talk about speech of language impairment, mental retardation. Now, the mental retardation numbers as they go on, I'm going to read you what it says. Now, what is happening here is you have emotional disturbed, multiple disabilities, hearing impaired, orthopedic impairment, other health impairment, which is now falling under the attention deficit disorder, visual impairment, autism, deafness and blindness, traumatic brain injury, developmental delays. These are the disabilities that they're servicing in the school. Now, NABI recommended for communicating with English language learners and their parents. The problem is most of the districts are not communicating with the parent to find out were they having a problem reading in their home language, to find out what was the home like and what are the differences and how can they best serve them. How many children of each ethnic background does my school have? You need to ask yourself this. What are the percentages in my school? Of the total number of students in my school, how many are receiving special education services? You need to know that. And of the students receiving special education services, what percentage are English language learners? Because that may be the problem. There may be a language acquisition problem rather than a learning disability. For each ethnic group represented in the school, is there an approximately equal proportionate of the group receiving special education? If there's not, then those light bulbs need to go on with you. Does the staff of my school need in-servicing training in English language learner? Why, yes, they do. Because most women that are teaching now don't even know the term English language learner or English acquisition, ELL, ESL. Most of them are not familiar with that. They don't even know that African Americans can receive those services. They think it's only for Hispanic children to go to shelter classes. But by golly, African Americans speak a pig language or they speak Ebonics, and they need help in their languages, and part of their disability is an English language barrier, and they need help with it rather than put in special ed. Now, looking at the table 3, it says, what are the most commonly spoken languages in the U.S.? And they've got Spanish, Vietnamese, Hmong, Korean, Creole, Cantonese, Arabic, Russian, Navajo, Talo, Khmer, Caribbean, Chinese, Mantonese, Portuguese, Americanese, Siberian Khotin, and Lorenese, Panchas, and Japan, Hindu, French, Cherokee, Bengal, Polish, German, and other languages. So there are many languages that are spoken by refugees that come here. Now, does the district have a language policy in place? You must find out if you're servicing children from different languages, you must have a policy in place. And one of those policies said that if you have over 15 students that are bilingual that come in your district, you must test them within a week and place them into some type of sheltered program. And you must know the regulations, because you could be caught up in the non-compliance program where they pulled you out for non-complying with the regulation. Allow time to brief interpreters to the meeting. You need to have interpreters that are in your staff. If you have bilingual people going to school, you need to brief them. And confidentiality and naturalization should be stressed at all times, because these people still have their privacy laws. Now, are training interpreters available through the school district central office? Do you have them in the district and central office, even though they're not in your school? Has time been set aside before the meeting or the session to brief the interpreters? You must set aside that time. And a lot of teachers are winging it, and principals are winging it, because they don't know what to do about these English spoken students that are coming in, non-English spoken student that comes in their district. District-wide interpreters pools have trained interpreters available for different types of meeting and criteria. You need to look into that. Schools can purchase equipment to allow for simultaneous interpretation during a small group meeting. And using the native language in the classroom is very important. Using the native language in the classroom, questions you might have is, does my school have a defined language policy? Like I said, what is that policy? And someone needs to take it out, and in your staff development, you need to go over it. NABI recommendation regarding parental involvement. NABI has a recommendation, and you need to know about it, and that will be explained to you in one of the staff development meetings. Now, NABI recommends for teacher assistant teams, and that's what I was telling you about. Some of the schools are already using these teacher assistant teams, and these teacher assistant teams meet once a week to discuss these referrals. They take a very, very serious eye at looking at those referrals and trying to decipher, how do teacher assistant teams work? What do they have to do? They have to bring information to the meeting. And the teacher assistants provide a variety of input to support the teacher in determining methods to assist the student. How can we assist the student without having to pull them out of the mainstream? And did this teacher hit the panic button? The TATs can help improve teaching and learning by focusing on adapting classroom instructions for individual student need. That means they need to have an IEP and adapting their lesson plan individually, because it may not be something that special ed can address. You can address that issue in a classroom, teacher. The staffs are appointed to the team on a rotating basis. So once a month, or however you change that teacher team, they are put on the team to address looking at these referrals. The teacher team meetings are scheduled regularly, and not just when they want to. They have to be regularly. Proceedings of the teacher team should be documented in a form, and information should be filed away for the next person that may have to look at that documentation. What information should be brought to a teacher team assistant? There is tons of information that the social worker can bring, that that child's teacher can bring to show tests that she's given, also to show the assessments, the quarterly assessment, the annually assessments that's been given on that child. Those can be brought. And she can also bring an interpreter to the session that can interpret the information and bring the parent to the session as well. Teachers should bring documentation of the student's present level of educational performances and behavior to the team. Teachers should also bring documentations of different methods and techniques they have used to address the child's deficit. Teachers should bring documentation of the length of time classroom intervention has taken. Is the child taking up so much time that the teacher needs the child to be pulled out and work with, remediated on one-on-one? Those have to be documented. What additional information can the teacher assistant team collect? They can collect the IDEA 97. Write that down. IDEA 97 term for specific learning disability. They need to read up on the IDEA 97. Does not include learning problems that are primarily the results of environmental, culture, or economic disadvantage. You don't have a disability because of your economic disadvantage or your cultural economic status. That does not mean you ordinarily have a disability because you grew up on the wrong side of the track. According to 34 CER 3007 B10.1, the teacher assistant can collect additional pre-referral information, which could include information on the student's family and background and any issues faced by the family that could affect the child's ability to learn in the classroom. Parental participation in the pre-referral process is critical. Parents can be asked to provide information about the child's health, previous schooling, years in the United States, siblings, as well as about the child's development. Parent interview forms are available in both English and Spanish, so they must be given these forms in their own language, and it's available in Spanish, included on page 43 of our book and page 40 of the publication. This form can be it could be photocopied and given to the parent. Now, additional information. Did you know parents can provide important information regarding the student's history and development? Information can be gathered on how the student uses his or her native language. You can ask all of these questions. Now, NABI has recommendation regarding evaluations of eligibility and individualized education program, and most people know that as IEP. NABI gives all sorts of recommendation on how to use this evaluation and the eligibility, because there's an eligibility criteria. You just can't put children in special ed without them meeting the eligibility. And language of evaluation is very vital that you should know that the evaluation procedure, each public agency shall ensure a minimum that the following requirements are met. Number one, tests and other evaluation materials used to assess a child under Part B of the Act are selected and administered so as nor to be discriminatory or racial or culturally biases, and are provided and administered in the child's native language or other modes of communication unless it is clearly not feasible to do so. And materials and procedures used to assess a child with limited language proficiencies are selected and administered to ensure that they measure the extent to which the child has a disability and needs special education rather than measuring the child's English language skill. B, a variety of assessment tools and strategies are used to gather relevant functional and developmental information about the child, including information provided by the parent and information related to enabling the child to be involved in the process and the general curriculum for the preschool child to participate in appropriate activities that may assist in determining, number one, whether the child is a child with a disability under Section 300, and number two, the content of the child's IEP are the instruments being used appropriately for the student. Will a variety of test instruments or procedures be used to determine if a child is a child with a disability? Will actual test scores be provided, or will the test results be reported descriptively? Will the student be evaluated in his or her native language? Why or why not? Are bilingual personnel available to complete the evaluation? If there are no bilingual personnel available, will interpreters be used to evaluate the child? Will the student be evaluated in the language of instruction? And finally, has the assessment process been explained to the parent in their native language if necessary? Now, these things have to take place, parents and principals, because you can be in non-compliance. If you have so many immigrants in your school and you're not providing shelter, classrooms, or testing for these children the first week, you could be in non-compliance. The learning English, how long does it take? You cannot tell the parent any particular time that it's going to take their child to learn English, because that will vary. The complex process of learning a second language is one that is beyond the scope of this publication. However, a brief classroom of the topic is appropriated here. Generally, students who come to school with well-developed skills in their native language have an easier time learning English. Students who have not had the opportunity to develop their first language because of interrupting schools or other factors may struggle to develop English language skills and may need specialized services. Different types of languages usage of developing as varying speed. For example, it is common to hear a child using phrases and sentences in English after only a few months of United States English. However, this tends to be language that is used on the playground or with peers, or language that is fairly repetitious and contextually based. I have to go to the bathroom. Language that is used for academic development is much more complex and is used in structures when the context is not clear. This language may take much longer to develop, and estimated that the academic language takes from 4 to 7 years to develop. It can take even longer than that, depending on several factors, interrupting schooling, levels of development, and native language skills, the emotional states of the child, and families, etc. Developing language depends on many factors, including the instructional method. Some schools use the child's first language to support the development of the second language. Bilingual programs of some native language instructions. Other schools incorporate the different languages and culture represented in the school. Whatever the structural approach of the school, including language and culture of the student, in a meaningful way, lets them know that they are valued members of the school community. Now, so that gives you how long it would take for the child to grasp this particular language. But after gathering information about the student, the team will have to determine if the student is eligible for special education services. Parents must be provided with the documentation used to make an eligibility determination. And during the process of determining eligibility, if, for example, a learning disability is suspected, the team must make a determination that the discrepancy between achievement ability is not caused by environmental, cultural, or economic disadvantages. And that's according to 34 CLE 300-54B4. That's a regulation that is according to. The team also must ensure that the learning difficulty for which the student was referred to special education are not due to a lack of instruction in reading, and most of the time is due to a lack of instruction in reading or math or limited English proficiency under 34 CER 300-534B1 II. The information that the training assistant teacher has gathered will be most useful at the point in the process. The determination of disability can be difficult to make, especially for students whose background are complex, e.g., those did not attend school in their home countries or students living in poverty. It is very important for the team to determine if the suspected disability is manifested when the student is using his or her native language. A child cannot be disabled in one language and not another. For example, if a child demonstrates severe reading difficulty and has had the opportunity to learn to read in his or her native language, the team should find out if the child has experienced difficulty reading in that language. Developing the individualized education program, and that's the IEP. Most of you may be familiar with that, and you parents too. One eligibility is determined by an IEP must be developed. The IEP team must include the parent and at least one of the student's regular education teachers, among others. The IDEA 97 states that schools must ensure that parents understand the proceedings of the IEP. Understand it, I'm saying. Meeting by using an interpreter if their native language is not English. The IDEA 97 also contains a clause that states that the IEP team must, and I repeat, must, in the case of a child with a limited English proficiency, consider the language needs of the child as though needs related to the child's IEP under Section 34 CER 300-346A21. See, these regulations fall under these criteria. Parents are learning these regulations. Those who can speak English are searching these laws, and they know their rights, and they can quote them. Now, it's probably these new English acquisition parents who don't know the law, and sometimes they can be overlooked. And NABI recommends for instructions and professional development to be had in a department because teachers don't know the regulation. And some administrators and principals don't know the laws. You need someone like me who have an educational law background that can help regurgitate the laws, reinforce the laws under educational special ed law. If native language instruction is used in your school, you may want to make sure that the instruction for the student with a disability continues in that language. And it's very vital because the Idea 97 says that requires children to be educated with their non-disabled peers. They require children to be educated together with their non-disabled peers to the maximum extent appropriate. And they call that the least restrictive environment. Frequently, this requirement is referred to as the least restrictive environment, LRE. And this is one of those topics that I teach on in my televised program. You must know the least restrictive environment. Even children with more severe disabilities can be successfully educated in regular classrooms if the necessary support and accommodations are in place for the child and the school staff. Accommodations must be in place, and principals, you have to know about these accommodations. Professional development is what I want to speak to you on now. I am a professional development specialist. I specialize in offering workshops, seminars, symposiums in these regulations and in these laws. You need to hire me on to bring me on staff to help you to do your own assessment, your self-assessment, to see what is lacking in your assessment and bringing your team together and helping you to get that team together so that they appropriately look at those cases that have been recommended for special ed. And I'm sure you will find that you have to weed out a lot of them, and a lot of them are no-go, and they are to stay put in the classroom and stopping the teachers from hitting that panic button and let the child remain in the classroom. Because you're under obligation under the law to allow that child to remain with his non-disabled peer in the classroom in the least restrictive environment. Because if you don't, you're in violation. And even if the parent don't know the regulation, guess what? The state does. And the state will be monitoring all schools for non-compliant. These are laws and regulations that must be adhered to. They're not something you want to look over. And your professional development, it reads, Nabi says, after reviewing this publication, you may decide that your staff needs additional training. I said additional training in some areas. I didn't say all, some areas. If your school has had a sudden influx of students who speak other languages and you have immigrants that are coming in, your staff may need training in second language acquisition to provide the situation necessary for students to develop English language skills. Teachers also may need training to develop the skills and knowledge they need to provide early intervention for students who are struggling with reading and math. Maintaining a calm and organized and disciplined classroom is critical for students' achievement. Yet, teachers may not have sufficient skills to maintain classroom behavior. A school-wide approach to behavior management can be highly effective in providing the behavior of most students. Finally, although it is your responsibility to provide professional development, you might want to discuss with your teachers the types of training they think would be helpful to them. And if they don't have an opinion, you give them one and tell them, I know you must be up on the laws of the regulation of 97 IDEA. And you certainly must be up on the laws that governs the 504, 94, 142. How can you provide the training your staff needs? How? Well, I'll tell you how. By hiring a staff professional development like myself. The district's professional development office can provide a variety of training resources, I know, but some of them usually don't have anyone on staff like myself who has had training in the educational special ed laws. The resource section of this guide will direct you to other sources for professional development opportunities, and I'm sure that you want to seek me out. You can also use the checklist on page 63 to 64 of this guide to identify areas of addressing through the training. Colleges and universities may partnership with local school districts. Even if none exists, you may be able to find people like me to negotiate with. Okay? Now, focus professional development on teaching and learning. You must have some professional development. Balance individual and organizations interested in professional development. Embed professional development in the workplace. Make sure that teachers who work with vulnerable students have solid professional development opportunities. And if you don't give them this knowledge, they won't know what to do. And the professional development questions that may be asked that you can consider. Does the staff in my school need additional training to better serve our students' population? Does the staff in my school need additional training to better serve the population in our district? More than likely they do. Have we identified the idea to target for training? We need to identify that. What opportunities are available from the district and from colleges, universities, and private entities like myself? What's available? Give me a try and you will see. Do we have a partnership with a college or university that could provide training? More likely not. More likely you can't afford it and you don't have the budget. But I'm willing to come in to help you to do an assessment of your staff and the referrals and get you going and up and going, making sure you're in compliance, and providing you with materials, forms, and books that will help you to do your self-assessment. Now, I'm speaking sincerely to the teachers. Some of you don't know about these laws and regulations, and you don't get to go to these workshops to find out what the laws say. And they tell you, never mind, you don't have to answer anything. Our social worker will answer that. Sometimes the social workers are not up on the laws and regulation, and they clearly don't know what to say to parents when they ask questions. They are just getting the child in, getting them assessed, and getting them labeled. But you must remember, the law says it is required that that student is able to stay in the classroom with the non-impaired, non-disabled peers so as to maintain the least restrictive environment. That is a law. And I teach on these least restrictive environment to make the teachers familiar with the abbreviation and the LR and the LSR abbreviation, because we use a lot of buzzwords. And you need to be up on these buzzwords so that you'll know. Now, this part of the segment of our workshop will be talking about how to run workshops to assist those who would like to set up parent information referral centers. Now, I ask you, why the parent centers? I've worked with the Alliance Organization for Parent Centers for many, many years. And it explains in here, why is it necessary to have a parent center? Parent can answer a lot of their questions through going to a parent information referral center through calling, and they can cut down on some of the panicking for them hitting the panic button. And the Individual with Disability Education Act is called IDEA. And the disability is a natural part of the human experiences and essential elements of the national policies. And they talk about before IDEA, children and young adults with disability often did not receive appropriate education service. Many were excluded entirely from public schools or general curriculum. Underdiagnosed disabilities prevented children from succeeding in school. Inadequate resources in schools forced families to seek education services outside of the public schools. And because of IDEA, children and young adults with disabilities receive free, appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment. You must remember that. It must be in the least restrictive environment, meaning that it's in the environment of the peers that are non-disabled. Most students progress to post-secondary education, employment, independent living, and I talked about transition the other day. That's a part of independent living and being part of the community. We want to transition our disabled youth back into the community so they can function on their own. Families can look to the future with hope. The IDEA changed the world for America children and young adults with disabilities. Parent centers are an integral part of the success. Remember I said about the success of a plan? Parent centers are the integral part. We must have parent centers because they're going to help us to get things done. And I have been lecturing for parent centers and appearing through child development venues to speak on the challenged child. I spoke on a podium with my professor where I was speaking on the challenged child and the policies and the laws and regulation. Parent centers help families. Parent centers serve families. And it's over 286,555 parents and 229,644 professionals attend the training and presentation offered by parent centers. See, parent centers offer workshops and symposium, and they not only train administrations but parents too. 87% said they shared information they received at the Parent Center workshop with other families. 97% said the information they received from the Parent Center's workshop was very useful. 80% reported information and supported received from the Parent Centers help resolve disagreements with the schools. 90% said information they received at a workshop enabled them to work with the schools to address a critical need related to their child's education. 92% reported the assistance they received provided information to make a decision about the child's education. 80% responded that because of assistance provided over the phone, their child has received more appropriate services. So as you can see, it is very beneficial to have a parent information center within your reach. But why the Alliance? I've been working with Alliance for a long time, but why the Alliance? The Technical Assistance Alliance for Parent Centers, the Alliance provides technical assistance to the nation's 106 parent centers through a unified system of one national parent technical assistance center, PTAC, in Minnesota, and 6 regional parent technical assistance centers with locations in New Jersey, in North Carolina, Ohio, Colorado, California. The Alliance helps parent centers by offering involving technical assistance, up-to-date information, and high quality resources and material. Alliance Regional Centers are parent centers. First, source of help. The National Center, located in Pacer Center in Minneapolis, administers the National Alliance Project, and together with the regional centers support all parents centers through the standardized publication, national centers and institutes, and managements and non-profit experts. The Alliance is important, ladies and gentlemen. It's important because they serve a purpose. The collaboration with other national technical assistance providers, they build partnerships with the business technology experts in the media to enable parent centers to serve families more effectively, increase the capacity of parent centers to serve underserved and underoppressed, underrepresented families, promote parent professional partnerships of local, state, and national level, coordinate a state-of-the-art technology system for parent centers, including a website, the Alliance Resource Database, and the Alliance Information Management System called AIMS database. So it's very vital that you know why we need this alliance. And the alliance accomplishments, they have made technical assistance and research-based information and conferences they've had. The technical business partnership is outstanding. So it's very vital that you should know that having this alliance will help the community and help the families. And here is a map. If you can see that map of the Technical Assistance Alliance Parent Centers. Look at that. There's section off by Technical Assistance Alliance for Parent Centers, Region 6. And that's Arkansas, California, Ohio, Nevada. And then you have Technical Assistance Alliance, Parent Information National Center, that is for Minnesota. And then the Technical Assistance Alliance for Parent Centers, Region 4. And that covers Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Maine, Minnesota, Missouri, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. Then there is a Technical Assistance Alliance for Parents that is broken off into various cities like Vermont, New Jersey, New York, Rhode Island, and Technical Assistance Alliance for Parents. That was Region 1 I was just reading. Then they have Region 2 that covers North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, Kentucky, DC, West Virginia. And then they have the Technical Assistance Alliance for Parent and the Center Region 3 that covers Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia, Mississippi, Oklahoma, Texas. And then you have Technical Assistance Alliance for Parent Centers Region 5. That's Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, and Utah, Wyoming. So they have a large capacity here, as you can see, that covers all of these states. And I want you to be familiar with them, and you can look them up. Now, that explains why we have a technical assistant. Now, let's look at some other things that they have going. And this is one you want to pay close attention to. This is developing parent leaderships and grant writing manuals for community parents resource centers. And here's where my story began. There's going to be a lot of you that are interested in going to grant writing classes, learning how to write a grant for a community parent resource center. You could have your very own community resource parent center, but you have to know how to answer an RFP. This is for the parents now I'm addressing. I've just talked to the administrators and principals and teachers. I like to talk to those parents who need somebody on their team to help them to draw up and their own grant writing plan and also answering the RFP for the grants. As I told you, the Alliance for Parent Center region, I broke them down for you, the Regional Parent Technical Assistance Center. And they can get help. And what are the steps to write a successful proposal? Developing parent leadership and grant writing manual for community parent resource centers. These are community parent resource centers. But what are the steps to writing a successful proposal? There are many. Your proposal must be well organized and directed clearly. The success or failure of your proposal depends on how well you communicate your ideas to a reader that's going to read these grants. I was once a reader for grants for BP and had the opportunity to make the decision of who to extend $5,000 to $10,000 worth of grant money. And a reader has to read your grant. Your proposal must be well organized and directed. It must be clear. You must demonstrate that you are likely to achieve the goal outlined in your proposal. You outline your goals, and you have to show that you can achieve them, and clearly define your expected results and offering detailed measurements of your success. Your grant writing process involves these several steps. According to Larry Decker and Virginia Decker and Grant Seeking, How to Find a Funder and Write a Winning Proposal. There are 6 steps, and I'm going to give them to you. Number 1, develop an idea. What is your idea? Number 2, organizing for action. How do you organize for action? Who's going to help you put that grant into action? Do you have people that can carry it out? Can you delegate to those people? Number 3, establishing a contract with a funding source. Establishing a contract, that means you have a meeting of the mind. That means that both of you sign off on that contract. Number 4, writing the proposal and following through. Following through. You can't write it all by yourself, but you can get people on your team to help you to be responsible for certain sections so that you will have a team helping you to write appropriately and clearly. Number 5, administering the grant. How do you administer the grant? You answer the IEP, you answer the RFP, and you begin to lay out how you're going to follow through on the grant, who's going to do what, which contracted people you're going to subcontract with to carry the grant out. And finally, evaluation. You have to have your grant evaluated. So you might want somebody to look over it before you submit it. Is this a sound grant? Has it been clearly written? And is it one that I can carry out the duties on and be successful? In applying to be funded as a community parent resource, and that is abbreviation CPRC, and it's called Community Parent Resource Center. You already have started refining your ideas and organizing your action. You also identify a potential funding source. Who do you want to fund you? Is it Amazon? Is it teachers of education? Who are you looking to fund you? What source? The remainder of the booklet will walk you through the steps of developing your plan and writing a proposal. You want to have writers on your staff to help you to write this proposal. You don't just try to go at it alone. Who funds Community Parent Resource Center? You need to know who is funding the CPRC. Congress established a discretionary grant program through authorizing legislation and appropriation legislation. Authorizing legislation describes the program and its requirements. Appropriation legislation tells how much will be spent on the program. For example, Congress authorizes an establishment of the CPRC. The authorizing language for CPRC, the first appeared in June 4th, 1997, reauthorization of Public Law 105-17, the Individual with Disability Education Act, IDEA, as we talked about, Language for Communication of the Community Parent Resource Center appears in the Individual with Disability Education Improvement Act of 2004. Hereafter refers to as IDEA 2004. The language of the law outlines the requirement. Please see page 15 of the manual for the language requirement for Community Parent Resource Center. So they send you to a referral page on page 15. What are the requirements to be funded as a CPRC? Have you thought about that? What are the requirements that I have to have? First of all, organizations seeking to be funded in a CPRC must meet the absolute priority requirements outlined in the grant application, package, which are based on the authorizing legislation in IDEA 2004 for application contact. Education Publication Centers, ED Pubs, which is the Department of Education one-stop center for information and products. And that is Education Publication Center, EdPub, toll-free 1-877-4ED Pub, PUBS, and that is 433-7827, and the fax is 470-1244. The TDD toll number is 1-877-576-7734. Website and online organization system is http://www.edpubpubs.org. Email is edpub@inet.ed.gov. You must be a private non-for-profit. This is the criteria. You must be private or non-for-profit organization to be funded as a CPRC. In addition, you must meet the definition of a parent organization for the purpose of eligibility for partner-centered parent training and information centers, PTI, or a community parent resource center. These are two different ones. A PTI is a parent training and information center. That's a larger one. Or you must be a community parent resource center, CPRC. One is a PTI and the other one is a CPRC. With IDEA 2004, this eliminates eligibility of membership organizations with governing boards as applicants for a parent center. Number 2, definition of local parent organization. And that is, in this section, the term local parent organization means a parent organization as defined in section 671A2. And that is, it has a board of directors. You must have a board of directors, the majority of whom are parents of children with disabilities ages birth through 26 from the community to be served. So you must be serving a geographical area. And number B, has its mission serving parents of children with disability who, number I, are aged birth through 26, number I, 2, have the full range of disability described in section 602-3. Great emphasis is placed on working with families of infants and toddlers and require activities for community parent resource centers are more specific and should incorporate concepts from No Child Left Behind, NCLB, scientifically based research and information, and greater emphasis on the provision of information on dispute resolution and mediation. That is a due process hearing that I was talking to you about, mediation, arbitration, and the emphasis must be placed on dispute and mediation. In either case, you must be able to provide training and information to parents of children with the full range of disability. Now that's where I come in at as a consultant to help you to put this project together, and you contract out for people to work with you. What must CPRCs do to assist parents of children with youth with disability? They should, according to the grant competition recommended, CPRCs and their staff must do the following things, and please jot them down, or else we'll be having a workshop and you'll be able to come to these workshops. We haven't decided yet. We're still looking into it. Number 1, provide a training and information that meets the training and information needs of parents of children with disability living in the area served. Number 2, serve the parents of infant, toddlers, and children with full range of disability as described in the section 602 of IDEA 2004. Number 3, ensure that the training and information provided meets the needs of low-income parents and parents of limited English proficiency children. Number 4, assist parents to better understand the nature of their children's disability and their educational development and transitional needs as well. Communicate more effectively and work in collaboration with personal responsibilities for providing special education, early intervention services, transition services, and related services. Participate in decision-making process and development of individual education programs under Part B and individual family services plan under Part C. Obtain appropriate information about the range and types and qualities of programs, options, services, technologies, practices, and interventions based on scientifically based research to extend possibilities and resources available to assisting children with disabilities and their families in schools and at home. Understand the provisions of this title and the provision of early intervention services to children with disabilities. Participate in activities at the school level that benefits their children and participates in a school reform activity. Now, let me say this. When you have a parent information center, you are a resource and referral center. You're allowing the parent to come in to participate in workshops and seminars. They can also gather material. You're going to have a wealth of material that you're going to be blessed with that you can give out. And you're going to guide the community to have children with special needs and become a resource and referral center. To assist the parent in resolving disputes in the most effective way, possibly including the use and explaining the benefits of alternative methods of dispute resolution, such as mediation process, which is what I told you about. And when you can't resolve it at mediation level, then you go on to arbitration level. And if it's not resolved at arbitration level, after he collects the facts, then they go on to due process hearings, which you're trying to avoid. Assist parents and students with disabilities to understand their rights and responsibilities under the title, including those under Section 615M. Up on the students reacting the age of a majority as appropriate under state law. Number 7, assist parents to understand the availability of and so effectively use procedural safeguards under the title, including the resolution session described in Section 615E. Number 8, assist parents in understanding, preparing for the participating in the process described in Section 615F1B. Number 9, establish cooperative partnerships with the parent training and information center in your state. Number 10, be designed to meet the specific needs of families who experience significant isolation from available sources of information and support. Finally, number 11, annually report to the secretary or the numbers and demographics of the parent to whom the center provides information and training in the most recently concluded fiscal year. The effectiveness of strategies used to reach and serve parents include underserved parents of children with disabilities and the numbers of parents served who have resolved disputes through alternative methods of dispute resolution. How are CPRs granted? The application scoring. There is a scoring session that takes place. So when the independent reviewer reads the grant application and scores them according to the specific criteria outlined in the grant application, there's a grant application for the fiscal year of 2005, for example, competition in the U.S. Department of Education, establishes the following scoring process and criteria. The significance of your report, you get 20 points. Quality of the project design, 25 points. Quality of the project personnel, 20 points. Adequacy of the resources, there's 15 points that's granted. Quality of the management plan is 20 points. All grant seekers must meet the absolute priorities for funding, but the application sometimes offers competitive priority as well. Competitive priority reflects areas of particular interest to the Department of Education. Applicants are encouraged to address them in their application. The department offers a competitive advantage to choose applicants that do so. Ed might award extra points to an applicant that effectively addresses the competitive priority, or it may choose to find an applicant that addresses the competitive priority over one that does not. So there's some priorities being given here. So you need to find out if you are addressing the specific area that they're looking for. You can get extra points that way. In 2005, Ed offered the following competitive priorities for the CPRC grant. Number one, applications that propose to provide services to one or more empowerment zones, enterprise communities for renewal communities that are designated within the area served by the center. Number A, list of communities available at http://hud.est.gis/CP freeze CPALRCEZCELEZC open HTM. Applicants could be awarded up to 5 additional points for additional competitive priorities. What should I include in a proposal? You might be asking, what should I include in a proposal? Well, it says here, read the application carefully to make sure your proposal includes all of the required information. Organization applying for federal grants must now have a DONS number. If you don't know what a DONS number is, that's a rating number to rate your company's credit. So you definitely need to acquire a DONS number. The DONS number is a unique 9-digit number, and the Dun & Bradstreet, a global information service, provides a signed DONS number. You can obtain your number at no charge by calling this number. And that number is 1-800-333-0505, or by completing a form which can be obtained at http://www.dnd.com/BIS/ABOUTDUNS.htm. You might want to call the number because that address is rather long. Grant proposals typically include, and this is what they include: cover sheet, number 1. Number 2, a table of contents. Number 3, list of priority requirements. Number 4, abstracts or summary. Number 5, application narrative, project significance. Number B, project's design. Number 6, methods. A, project personnel. B, project's resources. C, management plan. Number 7, appendix. Number 8, letter of support. Number 9, assurance and certification. Now, you're going to have to know how to construct an effective proposal. So you need a team of people. And you're going to have to know how to list the priorities of requirements, as I went over some of them. Abstract summaries. You're going to have summaries. And as the saying goes, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. And I quote, your abstract should be clear, concise, specific, to no longer than 1 page, includes the title of the program, the name of the absolute priorities, and the categories of federal domestic assistance number, the CFDA number, and that is the category of Federal Domestic Assistance Number. Located on the front of your grant application guideline. That's where that's going to be located. In your abstract, be sure to include and describe who you are. Who are you? Give a little background on your profile. Your objectives. What are your personal objectives for this project? The activities you plan, what will take place, and where you will operate, what building. Do you have a proposed brick and mortar building, or is it in your home? Project participants. Who will serve you? Who will you hire? The effect of outcome of the project. What do you want the outcome to be? What measurable effects you'll accomplish? How can you measure these effects? Can you look at them through quantitative analysis? Many people prefer to write the abstracts first, use it as an outline of their clear main goals. You have to have clear main goals, and refine it after writing the rest of the proposal. And you have to have your application narrative. And this is the core of your proposal, your chance to convince the reader of the need for your project and your agency's ability to carry it out. The narrative portion has several components, including project significant, project design, because the grant application outlines precisely what information you should include in your narrative. Refer to it and make sure you stay on task and write from that perspective. Project significant. What is so significant about your project? Now here's where you can sell yourself in this category. Selling yourself in this category would mean, why do you think you need this project, and why only you can perform and your staff can only do this? You might want to talk about your childhood dreams and things that you wanted to incorporate in your neighborhood, and why you wanted to serve African Americans. You can be specific on this and be explicit to your nationality. I want to service the Hispanics. I want to service the Japanese, and I think I can service the African Americans better. You want to be specific on your project significant. And the reader will assess the project's potential contribution to increase understanding of educational problems that are issued and effective and strategies. He's going to assess all of these. And you can't be BSing on this. The project capacity to provide, improve, expand services for the total population. How are you going to expand it for your location? You must take logistics of all the area that you're going to serve. You don't want to leave anybody out, and be inclusive. And the importance of the proposal project result. Helpful tips for writing this section, and that is conceptualize the need or problems you plan to address. Outline the characteristics of the population you plan to serve. Provide data based on both research and your experience. Include data on the extent, cause, and impact of the problem. Organize the information used specific in the grant application. Use items, use terms and phrases that relate to the finder's concern. Discuss promising strategies. Introduce your proposal solution. Now, I want to stop there because your project design is very important, and you know that. And you must have your goals precisely written down, and your objectives, and what are the things that your project significance are. How can you specifically be in charge of this project? And then look at the outcome. What is your expectation? Your goals should be general statements about what you hope to accomplish. Objectives describe explicitly what is it to be done, when is it to be done, who will do it. Now, note how or why they are measurable outcomes of results, not the method you will use. Okay, for outcomes, are these tangible results and are these reachable and achievable goals? And your methods, what methods you're going to use, the quality of project personnel. So adequately, you look at these resources. They make sure you exercise and use all your resources. Evaluation and planning and management planning. What other resources are available on grant writing? There's several. And that is the Foundation Center Guided to Proposal Writing, second edition. Grant writing for teachers. If you can write a lesson plan, you can write a grant. Secrets of Successful Grant Writing, a guerrilla guide, raising money. Grant making at Ed answers your questions about discrepancies in process, winning grants step by step. Now, I'm going to stop at that. Well, I might want to give you these 20 tips. You might want these 20 tips. 20 tips in writing an effective proposal, and keep these organized. Reread one grant application materials. Number 2, make sure you meet the eligibility criteria. Number 3, match your ideas to the grant's requirement. 4, gather supporting data and documentation. 5, follow the application instruction to the letter. 6, note that the required format, page size, font size, double, single space pages, and limits. Make sure you follow that. Notes and meet the deadline. Meet with a small group to conceptualize and outline your plan for your proposal. Now, if they say 5 o'clock p.m., they mean 5 o'clock p.m. and not a minute later. Number 9, draft an initial abstract. Number 10, begin writing your proposal as early as you can. That is to go back and readdress it and to look for any errors. Writing the proposal. Number 11, allow yourself plenty of time to prepare your proposal. Get to the point. Start each section with a clear, strong sentence. Number 13, use the active voice as much as possible and avoid the jargon. Number 14, make your proposal interesting, easy to review and read and evaluate. Number 15, never use the same proposal twice. Number 16, be upfront, realistic about asking for money. Number 17, meet the deadline, no exception, sent by certified mail. Number 18, be honest. Don't promise more than you can realistically deliver. Number 19, ask others to view your proposal before you submit it. And finally, number 20, double check your application. Have you completed all the required forms, gathered all the necessary signatures, check your spelling, double check your budget, figured for accuracy, and noted all the relevant dates. Make sure you do that. And you have to look at how do you start and operate a non-for-profit organization. Those are things that you need to look up with your lawyer. Prepare a business plan is one of them. And prepare articles of incorporation. Sometimes your corporation for LLC can prepare those articles for you if you don't know how to do them. And you can look up online and find a business plan that you can gear to your own personal use. Obtain a federal employee identification number, an EIN number. You must report to the federal government if you're going to set up a corporation. File for exemption. You need to file for your 501(c)(3). If you're going to be a non-for-profit, report annually to the IRS. Non-for-profit must file an IRS Form 990 every year. So it's a lot of work to this. It's not just a piece of pie or walk in the park. For further information, How to Form a Non-for-Profit Corporation, National Edition, 6th edition, by Anthony Mansko. And this step-by-step guide in the book and software form offers sound guidance on how to step-by-step involve in forming a non-for-profit organization in all 50 states, including checklist, simple, and incorporate the IRS forms with line-by-line instructions and reproducible forms for your bylaws and minutes. Because if you're a not-for-profit, you've got to start early in doing this. Now, there are many other additional steps that can help you, but this is just a foundation for those of you who are thinking about starting a Parent Information Center, for those of you who are looking for what to involve and what is involved. There's quite a bit involved. Having a non-for-profit organization, a 501(c)(3) is one, because you have to get approved for that. And then you have to become a corporation, and you have to file for your EIN number and reporting to IRS, and you have to file for an exemption, reporting annually and filing for an exemption are some very important things, because you can lose your 501(c) if you don't do those things. And some 501(c) have many chapters where they only file once, and those chapters don't have to file, which is a good position to be in. It's like being a subcontractor where you don't have to do anything but just subcontract, because the contractor has taken care of everything. But nevertheless, parent information centers are needed so badly. And if we're going to have all of our children in special ed, then we need to be in the business of running parent information centers. And we certainly need to understand how they're ran, because they can be so beneficial in servicing our families and the community who have special needs children, and servicing those parents of children with special needs. And those early intervention children, what we talked about from birth to 3, is very vital that you serve the early childhood literacy population, because you can prevent those children from going on with deficits and remediating and helping them from birth to age 3. So you definitely want to have a compartment that addresses that. And most parent information centers, they have a replicate boilerplate of the same services in every state that they offer. They may vary a little bit. Now, STUMP is also an organization that works with military families under special education, who I've worked with overseas, and they address parents overseas who have differentiated learners, special needs children, and who need to be serviced, because there's guidelines and laws that regulate these disabilities, and people just cannot give any old kind of services. They must give the child the ability to work within his classroom with non-disabled peers, where they can work alongside those children in the same classroom in the least restrictive environment. And you're going to hear me say that a lot, because there's a lot of laws involved in this, and you have to be able to decipher the laws, understand the laws, quote the laws, the regulations, and most parents can quote this. They've been advocates for a long time. So what you would call me is a co-parent facilitator, co-parent resolutionist, as well as an ombudsman, a go-between person who does regulations and training in the laws of special ed. I've been doing this for almost 36 years of my life, so it's become a hobby for me to get involved, and I was granted a scholarship, an actual, I guess you would call it a grant, to go to Madison, Wisconsin by the Windmill Grant to learn all of the educational laws and to be endowed with it, and then giving some grant money, some technical assistant grant money to run training and development to impart this knowledge to other teachers. I do have a ready-made television show that has been completed, that has covered all areas of the educational law and all the various different 94, 142, the Ideal 97, Section H of the laws. And I lost all my books while traveling back from overseas, that I'm going to have to get back again. I've been away from the profession, but once you learn it, you don't forget it. I've advocated for parents in the state of Illinois and work with them in trying to assist them with their children who were expelled from school and that were special ed candidates and needed to get back in. But my main purpose is a professional development and to talk about misappropriating and placing EL students, English as a second language students, in the wrong program and not giving them the services they need. So as a professional development, I can help the principals get their numbers down in special ed and get those students appropriately placed and stop those teachers from hitting the panic button and allowing those children to stay in the mainstream. We can't just keep putting children in special ed, hitting the panic button saying, oh, you're going to special ed, without properly assessing that child and bringing in thorough eyes to look over that assessment through a teacher assistant training team, also called SAT team, that can properly make sure that they reassess those children properly for appropriate placement who may need to be in language acquisition classes. So I hope this has been some help for you, and principals, do give me a call. Don't hesitate to give me a call to have me come in under professional development to perform your professional development in the area of English language learner, because this is an area that we're falling short on. We're not addressing those children who need those services, and we're placing them in a all-containing area of special ed, and those children are lacking the services they need for language acquisition. Once again, I hope those parents have been able to enjoy the grant writing overview, and there will be a grant writing workshop, and hopefully you can obtain your own booklet and you can start the process of writing your own grant with me on your grant writing team to help you to get through this parent information grant. And remember that there's two grants, the PTI and the actual Certified Family Life parent. And for those principals, we definitely want to look at determining appropriate referrals of English language learner to special education. You've been grand to work with today, and thank you so much for allowing me to come into your home today. And I say, straight ahead and into the future, Milwaukee. Straight ahead and into the future, Gary, Indiana. Straight ahead and into the future, Garland, Texas. Straight ahead and into the future, Detroit, Michigan. Straight ahead and into the future, Indianapolis. Straight ahead and into the future, Dallas, Texas. Straight ahead and into the future, Garland, Texas. Straight ahead and into the future, Avon, Indiana. Oh, double and Baba Booey to you, y'all. You've been listening to Maddie Harvey's baby sister. Oh, double. Peace.